1050.
Mail It In Friday here on OverDrive. Aaron Karolnik and Dave Feschuk with you here on TSN 1050. We're up on TSN's YouTube channel in for the usual trio. And Dave, the Maple Leafs, big one tonight. Okay, not so much. They play the Carolina Hurricanes down at the bank. There are 13 games to go. And you think maybe, just maybe, this team would understand that the prudent move would be to appropriately mail it in for the final 13 games. But apparently that is not the case. And nowhere is that more apparent than with Matthew Knies this morning at morning skate. This is a guy who's been dealing with a lower body injury for a very long time, and it does not seem to be improving very much. Why don't we take a listen to Knies this morning and respond accordingly?
For me playing, it's obviously not comfortable playing through it, but it's everyone's playing through something, I feel like, at this time of year. So it's not really an excuse, but if it's not going to get worse, then there's no problem with me playing. Then I'm going to play.
So Matthew Knies is one of the key pillars to your organization. The season is over. You're playing out this string, and sure, it can't get any worse, Matthew. It can't get any better either. You're in a position where if you play your cards right, you absolutely will have a very realistic chance to keep your own first-round draft pick, and they continue to play him. Why?
AK, that is an incredibly great question.
Thank you.
And
First of many, hopefully.
And there's no logical answer.
There is no logical answer at all. It is complete insanity as far as I'm concerned, and I just don't understand the rationale behind so many things within this organization. It's not only Matthew Knies. There's a lot of things I am questioning with what's going on behind the scenes. As far as the continuity, the connectivity from top to bottom here, the Knies thing seems to be a tipping point of sorts to understand what's going on when it comes to a plan that may or may not be in place. He should not be playing NHL games. He should be shut down. They should deal with whatever's plaguing him now, so it doesn't linger into the summer and he doesn't need to play out meaningless hockey games for the rest of the season. This just seems like the most obvious thing of all time.
I'm with you, AK. Like yesterday they had the fan day, the fan fest down at the bank there, and we learned all kinds of stuff about things we don't need to learn, like the Maple Leafs have dogs. And
A lot of them.
Troy Stetcher's got a fast one. Troy Stetcher's dog is the fastest of them all. Phoebe, the Bernese mountain dog that won the big timed race across the ice. But we know more about the Maple Leafs dogs than we do about their best prospects in the minors right now. And that is what alarms me, because where are the Marlies? Where are the freaking Marlies that should be playing tonight? And they're not.
Yes. No, absolutely. And when I speak to the level of disconnect within the organization, I think this is an interesting one because, again, you could debate, maybe you want the Leafs just to give up this first-round pick and roll it into 2027 and then, use this first-round pick and then you don't have to roll it into 2027 and 2028 when they're unprotected to Boston and Philadelphia. But I think everybody around the Toronto media scene, based on what we're hearing, there's no expectation that this is a team that's going down to the studs. Like, they are going to try to contend for a playoff spot next year. And if that is the case, then why wouldn't you be doing everything within your power to try to be as bad as possible for the final 13 games? And I should add, I don't think they're any good. I think they're going to get smoked by Carolina tonight. I think they're going to lose to Ottawa tomorrow as well. So it could happen naturally. But if we've learned anything from the NBA, it's that you need to take advantage of these situations when they arise. And the Leafs are in a position to plummet into the bottom five, give themselves the best chance. There's no guarantee, and Matthew Knies alone would not necessarily signify, okay, now they're definitely going to lose. But it is absolutely within the best case scenarios for the Toronto Maple Leafs to lose every single game for the final 13 games. It's just a straight up fact.
Yeah.
And just imagine how things would change as far as the perception of this hockey club, Dave, if all of a sudden they had Gavin McKenna or Verhoff or Stenberg in their organization. Not only would it add an air of intrigue heading into next season, maybe they're not playing for the Leafs, but the point is, you got this cornerstone prospect to go along with Matthews and Nylander and Knies and Cowan and your goaltenders. But for whatever reason, they're insistent on continuing to play their guys. I would also, and Woll and Stolarz, for me, they should be sitting.
Yes.
There's no reason to play these guys. Akhtiamov, welcome to the Toronto Maple Leafs. You just signed a new contract. Get in goal tonight. I just don't understand what they're thinking here.
You're right. Well, we know part of what's gone on here. Part of what's gone on, AK, is this performative tough guy routine they've been doing to try and reclaim their reputations after they became a league-wide laughingstock for not responding in the moment to Radko Gudas taking out their captain for the season, right? So that a lot of what's gone on since then has been, watch this, we're tough. Watch this, we can be a team just like every other team. We have togetherness. We have leadership. Do any of us believe it? No, because we saw who they really were when Radko Gudas kneecapped their captain. And we saw who they really were Game 6 when Anthony Stolarz called them out for not responding when Mason Marchment ran him, and he just lay there in the crease with Brandon Carlo and Jake McCabe and everybody else on the ice standing there doing nothing until Stolarz tipped over the net in a rage, and a rightful rage, we should add. So a big part of what's gone on since that incident has been, we got to reclaim our reputation.
Yeah.
Forget about that. This is about, to your point, getting the asset in hand. You
It changes
need that
everything.
first-round pick. It's better now than later because guess what? You want to be better.
And I think they will be better. There's no way the Leafs are finishing 26th in the NHL next season, is there? It would require a lot of bad things to happen, and it would require a philosophical shift, which we don't expect them to have, where it's like, okay, let's trade out some guys. Let's bring up some young players and give them opportunities, or maybe trade out a goaltender. We think they're going to try to be competitive next year. And if that's the case, this is the only path forward for the rest of the season for the final 13 games. But when I say connectivity, and I've used that term a number of times today, and I think it's appropriate, I don't think Tree Living has any idea what his future is. I don't think Berube has any idea what his future is. This is on Pelly to send the edict down. I know I'm going to be here. We're evaluating everything at the end of the season. Here's what we're doing. Here's the plan going forward. I don't know what your deal is, Brad or Craig. We'll figure that out in a couple of weeks. But we're losing these hockey games. Mm-hmm. That is what is most important for the future of our organization. And I truly believe it's an indisputable fact.
It's a great point, AK. It's a really great point. I do think it has to go above the head of the guys whose job security is in question. It has to go above the head of the guys who got you into this mess this season. And it's a big mess.
Yeah.
And you know what? It would make things better, not only for the Tank. Obviously, right now they're 7th worst in the league. They've got a 6.5% chance of winning the lottery. Hey, the Islanders won it last year with a 3.5%.
Got to give yourself the most lottery balls, Dave.
You do.
You got to.
You got to sink deeper, ideally. But on top of that, it's a dual benefit. To your point, you just signed Akhtiamov to a 3-year entry-level deal. Get him in an NHL net. He's played one NHL game to date.
Let's see what he's got.
Why not give him more? To your point, you know what? Okay, you brought up Quillen. You brought up Bo Grew. That's been great. But what about these other guys that you claim to have got hidden gems in Borja Vallis and Luke Hames, right? You signed these guys.
What about the college kids they just signed?
The college guys they just signed. I mean, you've got these guys with the Marlies. Let's see who they are. And why not? It's not as though you're doing something that's unethical, to use an NBA term. Everybody in the NBA is talking about unethical tanks, ethical tanks. Matthew Knies is hurt.
Yes.
Okay. I remember I speak to the occasional orthopedic surgeon in my line of work, talking as a reporter, and you always hear that it can't get any worse. All the orthopedic guys I've ever talked to always say it can always get worse. Okay. Yeah. Maybe not this injury, but guess what? The fact that you have that injury can lead to another injury because you're overcompensating. There's no reason why you wouldn't shut this guy down right now, other than the vanity of let's win some games so we don't look so stupid anymore, which I think is what is top of mind for Craig Berube.
For sure. If I'm Craig Berube, I'm trying to trot out the best lineup there every single night in an effort to regain what little credit or whatever you want to use, word you want to use to describe Berube going forward here. I think it's very unlikely he's back next year, regardless of how the final 13 games play out. But you got to take that out of his hands. You got to take it out of Tree Living's hands. And someone from up top needs to step in and say, Matthew Knies ain't playing anymore. What are we doing here? I just watched that press conference. And I listen, I have a lot of respect for Matthew Knies because I think there's a lot of people who just shut it down and said, I'm not playing anymore. I'm injured. Like, what are we doing here? And maybe if he was a little bit older and a little bit wiser, perhaps, that would be his move, but he said it himself. A lot of guys are banged up like this time of year. You're not. That's what you say in the playoffs. At the beginning of the Stanley Cup playoffs, no one's at 100%. Yeah, but there's no reason why you're playing if you're not at 100% because it's a two-pronged thing. One, he makes your team better, although he hasn't had the best of seasons. And two, start his offseason earlier. Get him back on track as soon as possible, especially considering we saw Austin Matthews, the 12-week recovery, which a lot of people are pointing to. Oh, that's right around the Stanley Cup final. Maybe Matthews could return for that. That ain't happening, people. It's a joke.
Who pointed that out?
I don't know, someone who maybe doesn't understand the precarious spot the Leafs find themselves in. But I just find that to be very frustrating and just very confusing overall. And the Nyes situation in particular, and say what you will about Woll and Stolarz, those are the only pieces that are giving the Leafs any chance of picking up points here. And listen, I guess the argument against it, you got a home game tonight. You want to field your best lineup in front of your fans? Sure. You don't want to mess with the hockey gods? Sure. But at least tomorrow night against Ottawa, second half of a back-to-back, it's time to start really embracing the tank, which is ultimately the most beneficial outcome for this hockey club.
And, to me, it's about future planning. Like, you got to see these Marlies guys in NHL games because, as we all know, there's watching AHL games and looking at AHL stats is not the same thing as NHL action, right? And so you've got to decide, are these guys from the Marlies viable candidates to take the roster spots we're going to need to fill in the offseason? Because guess what? Free agency is pretty thin this year.
Pretty thin.
And we all know.
It's rail thin. There's nobody out there.
And we also know they don't have a lot of assets to trade anyways. So how are they going to acquire the players they're going to need to fill out this lineup? Guess what? They might have to do it internally. Ergo, it's not just about the tank. It's about freeing up roster spots for the guys that essentially would be auditioning and should be auditioning beginning tonight.
Yeah, so Mike Johnson is going to join us at 5 o'clock. We'll continue the conversation there. And MJ was part of the broadcast last night for Detroit and Montreal on TSN2. Great win for the Wings. Tough loss for the Habs. One, because of the place they find themselves in the Eastern Conference. And two, everybody else won. Literally, in the Atlantic Division, Buffalo, Tampa, Detroit, Ottawa, Florida, Boston all win last night, which is crazy. And it looks, Dave, like, and as we bring up the Eastern Conference standings on TSN's YouTube channel, that it might take 100 points to get in the Eastern Conference. That is the pace at this moment that it could require. And in the Western Conference, it could be 87 to get in. What a crazy disparity. And I would still say the three best teams in the NHL are in the Western Conference: Colorado, Dallas, and Minnesota. But then you might have like 9 teams in the Eastern Conference that follow that trio.
Yeah, although you do call into question, like, given the unbalanced schedule, like, how good are those Western teams?
I think there are 6 teams in the Atlantic Division that would be in first place in the Pacific Division.
Yeah,
that is insane.
It's incredible. It really is. And look, it does go to show, not to be an apologist, and we're the furthest things from that, but that's how tough the Leafs have had it, right? Like the Atlantic Division's
that is true.
The Atlantic Division is as tough as it is this year, and the best team for the past 3 years, Florida, has got a 1-point advantage on the Leafs. Florida's been terrible.
And they're tanking too. And I know last night they did win in Edmonton and shut out Edmonton, I may add. I have a feeling they're going to get pummeled tonight by Calgary when Bill Zito calls down, hey, guys, that's enough. We need to keep that top 10 protected pick that we traded, and we're going to do that, so enough winning. Florida's been embracing it. Brad Marchand, mysterious injury.
Yeah.
Sam Reinhart hasn't been playing. Bobrovsky's splitting starts. It seems like Florida knows what they're doing with the tank. Save last night. Well, we'll see if the Leafs can follow suit.
It would make so much sense. I mean, William Nylander, he's had, he had the pre-Olympic. He had the pre-Olympic groin injury. He went to the Olympics. It's been a crazy year. The condensed schedule. All we've heard is how tough it's been to stay healthy in the NHL this year. There's every reason to say, shut him down. Shut him down, start the offseason early, and try and recalibrate as quickly as possible. Because as you say, AK, they're not tearing this thing down to the stuff.
They're not. It's not happening. They're not going to be worse next year. I refuse to believe that they are going to at least attempt to be worse. Now, invariably, they could become worse. Weird stuff can happen over the course of an NHL season. We've seen it this year with the Leafs. And I think they're probably going to finish with the 25th, 26th, 27th worst record in the league. If this is a team that attempts to be good next year, it's going to be very challenging to be that bad again. It could happen, But at least based on what we're hearing, that is not the plan. And if that's not the plan, there's no reason not to tank this year.
Well, look, I mean, if they don't improve the defense, I'm not sure it's going to be that hard to repeat the performance. Because let's be honest here, this is not a good defensive core right now.
Not in the slightest.
I mean, we
and
all
you get
know.
Chris Tanev back. Again, that's what they're going to be telling you in the offseason. Chris Tanev is going to be healthy. It's going to make a big difference.
But he's
on the back end.
36 years old.
I'm well aware, but I'm telling you, that's one of the messages is going to be. We have a new coach, a new vision, a new style of play. It's going to be different next year. Chris Tanev's back. The goalies will be healthy. Austin Matthews, a whole offseason of recovery. He's going to be feeling great. This is what you're going to be pitched. And the thing that I would actually buy, which I don't necessarily buy anything there, is a plan that included a top 5 pick. Oh, we have this Stenberg kid in the organization now. And you're like, oh, damn, all right. Now we're talking. And not only is that good for the team itself, but I also think it would be good for maybe recruiting a coach.
Yeah.
Oh, all of a sudden you got a top 3 pick.
Pete DeBoer.
Sure. Maybe
interested?
he looks at it a little bit differently. Maybe you're recruiting a new general manager. Oh, okay. We had no prospects at all, and now we've got one of the best prospects. Interesting. I do think that and again, I still think they're going to lose tonight. I don't see them beating Carolina. I don't. But Joe Wall's starting. It's been great. Stolar's going to play tomorrow, I think, against Ottawa. Hockey night in Canada. Who knows, man? Who knows? That's the scary part.
I wonder, AK, like, you know, you hate to think people aren't very smart, right? Like, you have to believe that the Leafs management is aware of the options we are laying out here. And I'm wondering with the goaltending in particular, like, is part of what they're doing here down the stretch, when it would make all the sense in the world to get Akhtimov in there, to get Dennis Hildeby some more NHL starts, is what they're doing sort of almost trying to do a bit of a late season showcase for their 2 veteran goalies with the idea that you're going to have to trade one of them.
Which you probably do have to trade one of them. And maybe you keep Hildeby, or maybe you trade Hildeby. I don't know. It depends. But
right, but they're showcasing these 2
That's
guys.
That's a case they made. But I do think, like, what is that really going to tell you about Woll or Stolars? I think you pretty much know what they are.
Except they're flawed. Except they have been healthy.
They're flawed. And the flaw is that they can't stay healthy over a prolonged period of time. But when they are playing, save Stolars' first 13 starts of this season, they're really damn good.
Yeah,
really.
It can be.
If you look at Stolars' numbers last year and you compare them to the best goalies this year, he'd be right there statistically. And he was last year too. Yeah. And Joe Wall, the same thing applies. Sorokin's got a .914 save percentage this year, and they're talking about him as a Vezina Trophy winner, which he might be. That's right around what Woll and Stolars were last season. So, again, that would be the case that they're going to pitch you. But at the same time, is that really in your best interests over the final 13 games? And it might not matter. That's the reality. This team stinks. They were playing horrible hockey. They had that brief respite over the 5 points in 6 games where they didn't play particularly well, but they got a point off Buffalo. They got 2 points off Anaheim. They got beat Minnesota in regulation.
That was a big win.
And then
got a shot handily.
Yeah, and they did. And then you saw the performance against the Islanders, which was completely lifeless. So we'll see what they've got tonight and tomorrow. But you know, as long as Woll and Stolars are in there, it's going to be it's not going to be a blowout loss, I don't think, because those goalies are really close to the top of their game.
Yeah, you're right. They probably got a really good chance to keep it close. And my point would be late season showcase for guys who've had rougher seasons at times, and also injury-plagued seasons. So maybe that's part of it. I'm trying to give an answer to why.
I know,
because otherwise it doesn't make sense why you wouldn't have your Marley goalies as your Leaf goalies beginning today.
What's David Ayres up to tonight?
Yeah, there you go.
You can slide him in. Well, again, we'll talk to MJ just after 5:00 when he joins the show. Also happening last night, Buffalo winning again. And Columbus winning again. These are the 2 hottest teams in the NHL, Buffalo and Columbus.
Incredible.
And again, Buffalo had a general manager change that seemed to be the catalyst for their turnaround. Columbus had a coaching change with Rick Bowness sliding in there. 17-2-4 are the Blue Jackets since they fired Evason and brought in Bowness. That's crazy.
It's incredible.
And Buffalo, in their last 40 games, 32-6-2. Like, these 2 teams, I would not want to play either of them in the postseason. Now, Buffalo's getting in. Columbus, maybe not. But, man, those teams are just wagons at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for a franchise-shaking move, right? And there's a reason why coaches get fired so often in this league, and why there was, I think, a really good case to fire Craig Berube instead of firing Mark Savard in those 3 days before Christmas when they decided to fire an assistant coach, instead of the head coach, just because of the phenomena of the new coach bump, right? Like just changing the air in the room, so to speak, can be enough to turn what looks like a brutal team, and that was the Columbus Blue Jackets, into a team that's, to your point, one of the hottest in the league, if not the hottest, and suddenly looking like it's a playoff contender. I'm not saying it would have happened with this Leafs team, because it's hard to explain exactly why they've been as bad as they've been, and I don't like to put it all on Berube, but the levers you had to pull were very limited.
That's it.
Especially in a year where Brad Treliving showed a real limitation in his imagination in terms of doing anything other than picking up Troy Stetcher's on waivers and a few other minor moves. You can look back and say, would the season have been better if they could have got Pete DeBoer in December? I mean,
or literally anybody else, a different voice. And that's not to denigrate Craig Berube and his coaching abilities. The guy won a Stanley Cup. You can never take that away from him. But you do wonder if they just tried somebody else, if that would have made a difference. And maybe we're talking, again, I don't see the Leafs as a team that even in the most perfect situation with a coach is getting to 100 points this year with the roster they have.
Hard to imagine.
Like the Eastern Conference, it's just a juggernaut this season. And maybe you look at it, you kind of shrug your shoulders and say, even if everything went perfectly, we probably weren't getting 100 points anyways. But we'll never know.
But again,
that to be the case.
The point is, at least you would have known if that was part of the problem.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
And again, now you go into the offseason, just like you're going to be guessing on all these Marlies you're not playing. You're going to be guessing about what the real effect of a new coach will be, and you could have known. You could have known. You could have made that move in December or January, and at least had some evidence of what that move will be in a season that was otherwise lost.
So Ryan Dempster will join the show at 5:30. We are 1 week away from the Toronto Blue Jays home opener. I was unable to secure tickets for the standing room only drop that came this afternoon. And, I work at Bell. I don't work at Rogers. Maybe if I'd hook up over there, pleading to my friends over there. But I don't know. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see Kevin Gausman on the hill, but there's definitely a lot of injury concerns with the Blue Jays on the mound, which we'll detail with Ryan Dempster when he joins the show. Jack Armstrong is going to join us in studio on the other side. Toronto-Denver tonight in Denver. Big game for the Raps, who won 3 games in a row in March Madness. How about that Kentucky half-court heave? That was
great.
Unbelievable. And then they win it in overtime. Huge win for the Wildcats. Again, Steve Nash's Santa Clara. I know you and Steve Nash go way back, Dave, so I'm sure he wasn't overly enthused as to how that game played out.
No. But hey, man, Duke got a scare yesterday
did they
from
ever.
The Sienna Saints of
Jerry
Mac fame.
McNamara.
Yeah.
The coach there.
Jerry Mack from the
Syracuse legend.
The Mac, of course, the not-so-power conference that Jack used to coach in with Niagara. So, I'm very familiar with it because I used to go to Niagara games as a kid and watch Jack coach. He was an absolute maniac on the sidelines, but never made the NCAA tournament. And there was his league counterpart, Jerry McNamara, giving John Shire and the Duke Blue Devils the #1 overall seed. A hell of a scare yesterday.
Yeah, that was something. I was struggling. Do I want to support my bracket or do I want to support Siena in this crazy upset? Ultimately, I supported my bracket. I got Duke in the Final Four. So, Team Aaron Korolnik lives.
So does everybody.
Lives. Yeah, exactly. Way to go, Aaron. You took the most popular team all the way to the Final Four. That's Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. I'm Aaron Korolnik. Jack Armstrong joins us around the table next.
Tomorrow on TSN 1050, your Toronto Maple Leafs renew the Battle of Ontario on the road versus the Sens. Coverage starts at 6 p.m.
Johnny Toronto!
Hear it all on TSN 1050. The Leafs live here. Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Mail It In Friday is brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. Enjoy $15 lunch at BP where you get an entree, a side, and a drink, and you'll get it all in 20 minutes or less. A fast lunch doesn't have to be fast food. See you for a $15 fast lunch at your local Boston Pizza. Aaron Korolnik, Dave Feschuk, The man, the myth, the legend, Jack Armstrong, joining us around the table.
I was in Chicago on Wednesday morning, and I'm talking, and now here you are. And speaking of mail it in, where are Hayes and Noodles and
they're probably sweating their brackets. That's my guess.
On a Friday, they're in a pub somewhere watching this game.
They're worried about Santa Clara. I think O'Neill has them to the Elite Eight, and that probably didn't work out.
I had them beating Kentucky today. So
well, I'm looking at your bracket right here.
I have a few X's.
A few X's. How deep do those X's go? Because there's nothing worse, Jack. You know better than anyone. You go over one side, another one. You're going all the way to the Elite Eight.
I'm not.
You're still in good shape?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm in good shape for the shape I'm in. That's about the extent of it.
I love it. I love it. Well, why don't we start with that game today, Kentucky-Santa Clara? I mean, a half-court heave at the buzzer in regulation to tie it up, an overtime win for Kentucky. I mean, that was incredible.
Well, it was interesting. Kentucky got a great shot, and then Santa Clara came down, and they got a wide-open three. And then Herb Sendek, the coach, was trying to call a timeout. I was a little surprised, and it's hard. Again, you're dealing with college players. You're up three. The strategy is, do I give the foul to prevent the game-tying three? And it was just so frantic. They didn't do it, and he was trying to get a timeout. He couldn't do that, and the guy makes the shot. So, hey, look, if you're Kentucky, I don't think their team, they've had some injuries. I don't think the quality of their team is a Final Four type team, but you got to beat a Santa Clara, and they did what they had to do.
Well, last year, Jack, it was so chalky, meaning the favorites were winning everything in this tournament. There's been at least a few upsets here. But what do you make of it? Like, why do you think, is this the NIL era where the money's going to win more often than not, and kind of the Cinderellas are going to be fewer and farther between, or how do you see it?
Well, it's interesting. You got this is the last year of the collective bargaining agreement in baseball, and they're talking about the need for a cap. And why do you see some of the better teams in baseball with the higher salaries usually in the playoffs? So there's no cap in college basketball. So I think the mentality of chalk really exists because of the fact that the teams and the schools and the conferences that are most committed are usually going to be there. And the transfer portal, though, is a great equalizer. And when you're a big level school, you can poach a guy from the mid conferences. You're seeing some guys perform at a high level that came from low to mid major schools, and they're able to pick and select. So it gets really, really hard to have as competitive a tournament as maybe we've had in the past.
Jack Armstrong with us here in studio. You're listening and watching OverDrive. So Duke almost loses to Siena, 1 versus 16. How much do you think that affects your perception of the Blue Devils going forward, that they were tested to that point by a 16?
Well, they got 2 injuries. 2 of their starters are out right now, so they're not as good. They're a 1 seed, but their 1 seed is based upon the totality of their work from the beginning of the season in November. But if the eye test to me, I give John Shire, their coach, a lot of credit. At halftime, he made an adjustment. They went to a zone against a small team from the MAC conference in Siena. And usually when you have the better talent, you want to press, you want to trap. You say, we're just going to physically overwhelm these guys. Instead, they sat back in a zone and just used their length and kind of changed the rhythm for Siena. Now, Jerry McNamara, the coach of Siena, didn't use a sub until with 8 seconds left in the game. So I thought his guys ran out of gas a little bit. And I thought Duke did a really good job attacking them on the offensive glass. And usually when you have talent, you're going to win that battle. Obviously, the Boozer brothers, they're different type players. But nonetheless, when push came to shove, they were the ones that really made the difference for Duke.
Well, we were saying, Jack, that you coached in the MAC, the Metro Atlantic Athletic
Siena was
Conference.
in our league, yeah.
Siena was in your league. Let's put that matchup into some kind of perspective. We know Duke has got a reported salary cap, NIL outlay in the 20-something million. What do you suppose Siena's would have been?
Probably, you might get a little Taco Bell after the game, or McDonald's, or Burger King, or something like that. I had a guy one time when I was a coach at Niagara. We were playing Clemson, and obviously this is before NIL. But Clemson's and they were doing some things recruiting wise in football and basketball. So one of my players says, "Hey, coach, why don't I get hooked up like those guys?" I said, "Look, Reggie, if I was going to cheat, I'd sure as hell get a better player than you. I said, so shut the hell up and be happy you have a scholarship.
Yeah, enjoy the Taco
He goes,
Bell.
Coach, I got you there. So that's about the extent of it, I think. Right. So it's really hard. So, and it's interesting. You're at a school like a Siena, and you do a good job recruiting a good player as a freshman. Maybe he stays one more year and develops into a really good player. That guy's out the door. You got everyone above you that's going to hand the kid a lot of money, and the kid's going to go. So it just changes things so much.
So March Madness coverage continues across TSN all weekend long. We'll be tuning in as soon as this show is over. We're radio YouTube only today, Jack, because of all the March Madness coverage.
Okay.
Yeah, we're YouTube stars. We're like the Bryan Bros, Grant Horvat. That's what we are,
us.
Dave. So let's focus in on the Raps tonight. It's on TSN 1050, taking on Denver. Tough test, clearly. But you heard R.J. Barrett after the Raptors win against Chicago talking about how he thinks maybe the team has turned it around and found something that you beat a team like Detroit, which is a huge win. They had Cade Cunningham then and potentially get him back before the end of the season. But just how big of a test do you think tonight's game is against Joker and company?
It's a big test. And, you're at altitude, so it's never easy. And they're coming off an embarrassing loss against Memphis the other night, and Jokic didn't play well. So they have their own issues. And it's interesting, you look at Denver right now, I think they're the 5th or the 6th seed, if I'm not mistaken, in the West. And Toronto is the 5 seed. But you got Atlanta, who's rolling right now, right on your back. Orlando, Miami, Philly, Charlotte. 5 through 10 in the East is crazy. I think, Detroit, to your point about Cade Cunningham, as long as he's able to come back in a few weeks, they'll be fine. They'll hold the fort. I think they'll be able to hold on to the 1 seed. I don't think if he's out for an extended period of time, they could withstand that because he's really makes them go. But I think for the Raptors, I think it's imperative to try to hold on to at least the 6th seed because you get into a play-in situation, you could move fast from 7 to 8 to 9 to 10. And, do you really want to play one of these teams head-to-head? If you're going to be in the play-in, you better be a 7 and 8 where you have 2 chances to go because if you fall to 9, 10, and the Raptors really struggled matching up against Charlotte this year. They swept Atlanta, but Atlanta's a different team. And the 3 games that are going to be huge, thank goodness they're all in Toronto. I'm not sure if I should say that because they haven't been a great home court team. They got Orlando next Sunday night at home. And then the following week, right before the season ends, they got Miami on a home back-to-back on April 7th and 9th. So those 3 games are going to be, I would say, tipping point games for the Raptors. Not only them, but for the Magic and the Heat. So they're far from being an assured of a playoff series. They've had a really good year. They're 10 games over 500. They've won 20 road games. They're kind of a strange team at home a little bit. I'm still trying to put my finger on why, but nonetheless, they got their chances to be there. But they got to get a few more of these games on the West Coast. They got Phoenix Sunday as well, which won't be easy.
And you'll be with them next week when they hit LA to play the Clippers, Jack. The other LA team is probably the most talked about team in the NBA right now, the Lakers. They've won 8 in a row, coming off a big win last night where Luka gets 60.
Wow.
LeBron gets a triple-double. There was a lot of talk when they weren't playing as well as they're playing right now that maybe this wouldn't work with LeBron and Luka not being particularly great defenders. Maybe this team didn't have the kind of wherewithal to be one of the NBA's top teams. As it sits, their 3rd seed in the West. How seriously do you take the Lakers?
Dave, here's a few things. I think Reeves, healthy in the lineup again. You got to guard him because he can really score. LeBron is LeBron. And anytime you send 2 to the ball on him, he's just a sensational passer. And DeAndre Ayton, to his credit, to me, has been as professional as he's been in his career in terms of buying in and understanding and humbling himself a little bit in terms of who he is. And we haven't even mentioned Luka yet. Now, you get to him. The guy is just a dynamic. He's got that it factor. He can make any kind of shot. He's cocky, bordering arrogant, and a great talent. And, a guy that has shown in his career that he can make huge shots back end of the shot clock. So who do you guard? And do you send two to the ball on him? Because they got other guys. You got Ayton who could score at the rim, and you got Reeves who's a terrific scorer, and you got LeBron in big moments who still knows how to make plays. They're a really good team. And I tell you what, I give J.J. Redick a lot of credit. That's not an easy team to coach. He hired a very experienced coaching staff with him, and he's very secure in his own skin. I mean, he's got Scott Brooks. He's got Nate McMillan, former head coaches, on his bench. He's got a guy like Bob Byer, who's a good friend of mine, who was the head coach at Siena, has been a longtime NBA assistant. So he's got a lot of guys with him, and that's not an easy group to coach because it's ego-driven, and it's a huge market and a lot of pressure. But I think they've handled it really well. I mean, I think Denver and Minnesota still a sleeper teams in the West. Minnesota's been to back-to-back West Finals. And, if Denver's healthy, their offensive efficiency is off the charts. I don't like how they're defending right now. And off the bench, Jonas Valanciunas hasn't been at the level we're accustomed to seeing him play. I thought he'd be better for them.
Jack, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming by.
That's it?
Well, we got to talk about the Sabres briefly here. How fired up are you for some Sabres playoff hockey?
If I'm a GM in the NHL, I'm hiding under my desk right now. You think about it, you whack Kevin Adams, and I think they were on a 3-game winning streak when it happened. And so if I'm a GM, I'm like, forget about trading a guy in the room that's a pain in the ass or firing the coach. Let's just go get the GM. Maybe that'll shake my team up. I can't figure it out.
They don't lose. They never lose.
They're playing great. Last night was just a juggernaut. And so I'm thrilled for them. And I'm thrilled for Lindy Ruff. This is his last kick of the can.
Coach of the year right there,
He
Lindy
came
Ruff.
back, to turn this thing around and get him in the playoffs. He's had a great career. I think Lindy's 4th all-time in wins as an NHL coach. So I'm happy for him. They got a fun young team, and let's see what happens. And we got to get a few more Canadian teams in the NHL playoff hunt. What do we got? Edmonton, Montreal.
Yeah, they're precarious. Montreal's teetering too.
Montreal.
They're far from a lock.
And who's the third one? There's one more.
There isn't really.
There's only two right now.
It's only 2 right now.
Wow.
It doesn't look like it'll be any more than that,
So,
barring some kind of crazy
Buffalo
thing.
might be the adopted team.
Yeah, we'll take them.
Pretty much Canadian.
Yeah.
Pretty much a Canadian team.
Close enough. Jack, thanks so much.
That's right. I'm looking at the standings right now.
Right. There it is. Yeah.
Ottawa's 5 points
maybe.
off.
Ottawa maybe.
The Leafs, I don't think are making it this year.
I think you're onto something.
That's a safe bet.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for coming by.
Thank you. Did you work this morning, by the way?
No, just afternoon. As you can imagine, I woke up this morning around when I usually wake up.
That happens all the time.
And I just sat there for 8 hours waiting to get on the air and talk to you. So I'm glad we can make this happen.
Dave, he just, he works nicer hours than us.
Yeah, well, whatever. It's all good. Everyone's happy here. We're all employed. We're all smiling.
Amen to that.
Could be a lot worse. Working for a living would be a lot more problematic. That's Jack Armstrong here.
Thanks, guys.
On OverDrive. Mike Johnson in about 20 minutes. Ryan Dempster at 5:30.
Tonight on TSN 1050, your Toronto Raptors hit the road to Denver to take on the Joker and the Nuggets.
Snaps it down.
Coverage starts at 8:30 p.m.
Got it!
Hear it all on TSN 1050. The Raptors live here. Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
I need you to hold on. Heaven is a place not too far away. We all know I should be the one to say.
OverDrive continues. We are brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Aaron Korolnik, Dave Feschuk with you here on Mail It In Friday. Mike Johnson in about 15 minutes. He'll call in. He called the Red Wings-Habs game last night. And Ryan Dempster as well at 5:30 to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays. But I was looking at the odds, Dave, on the Hart Trophy on FanDuel during the break. And look who's creeping up ever so steadily. None other than Nikita Kucherov. And this should surprise no one. The guy is on a precipitous tear right now. Seemingly every night he's racking up 3+ points, including last night, Tampa beating up on Vancouver. And it's weird because McDavid and the Oilers, McDavid's having a tremendous season, not taking anything away from him, but the Oilers are not great by any stretch. Colorado has been an average team since the new year hit. Celebrini, maybe you can make a case for him if the San Jose Sharks get in, but it's looking more and more like a distinct possibility that if Tampa wins the Eastern Conference, Nikita Kucherov could win the Hart Trophy, and I would have no issue with it at all. Guy's been unbelievable for the Lightning.
Well, not only could he win the Hart Trophy, he's got a really good chance to win the Art Ross
Definitely.
Trophy because he's neck and neck with McDavid for the points lead. And yeah, I don't think a lot of people had Tampa being one of the best teams in the East again this year. I don't know. Like if you go back and look at the preseason prognostications, I think people were sort of sleeping on Tampa a little bit, right? Like as though their best times have come and gone, and that their Stanley Cup window may be slowly closing here. And Nikita Kucherov's reminding everybody that he is an incredible hockey player with an amazing skill set. And I think also buoyed by the fact that, thanks to the fact that Russia was not involved in the Olympics, he had a nice little
Good point.
break there. We talked about that. Tampa had, both Vasilevsky and Kucherov being central pieces to that team, not having to go to the Olympics. I think that's a considerable advantage.
And Braden Point and Anthony Cirelli.
We're
recovering from injuries,
they, of
but
course, wanted to go to the Olympics.
they
but
came back
Yeah.
fresh and were ready to rock. Those guys have been very good as well. Last night was Kucherov's 4th straight road game with 3 or more points, something that no one has done since Sidney Crosby back in 2006. So what this guy is doing has been really, really special to watch. And we talk about McDavid, and I heard Hayes earlier this week talk about how maybe the Draisaitl injury could buoy McDavid right back into the same conversation to win the Hart, to win the Art Ross, when it kind of looks like it's had the opposite effect in that last night Edmonton shut out by the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
Like,
Who were 1 point ahead of the Leafs.
Yeah, exactly. And Florida has mailed it in basically since they returned from the Olympic break. They're sitting guys. Bobrovsky was excellent. And it just looked to me, I watched some of that game last night, and Matthew Tkachuk kind of uttered the same idea that I had, is the Florida Panthers really want to beat the Edmonton Oilers. They love doing it in the Stanley Cup final, and they brought a little bit more oomph to that game than again, like Florida plays Calgary tonight. I can almost guarantee you they get walloped by the Flames. Yeah. I can just see them being, second half of a back-to-back. Alberta, we're good. Check, please. We'll head back to South Florida. But kudos to the Panthers for picking up that win. But the Oilers, you can't write them off simply because if Draisaitl gets back and they have McDavid, and Bouchard's an unbelievable player, and Hyman, Nugent Hopkins, there's a bunch there. But at the same time, like you can't you are what you are, and you are what your record is. And Edmonton is an average hockey team, and they've got a lot of flaws. And I think they'll ultimately get into the postseason. And if they play in the Pacific Division, which they do, sure, they could beat Vegas or Anaheim in round 1. Absolutely. It's just the Pacific Division is laughable.
It is
laughable, especially when you compare it to whatever's going on out east.
And lucky for the Edmonton Oilers that it is laughable, because it's going to give them that opportunity to make the playoffs. And to your point, they are what their record says they are. They're a 550 points percentage team right now, which is not very good, right? And wouldn't make the playoffs in the East if they happen to be in the East. But they're an average hockey team with 2 guys with a proven track record of absolutely raising their game when the playoffs roll around, right? When you're talking about McDavid and you're talking about Draisaitl, you're talking about 2 guys who are in the top 5 all time in playoff points per game, right? So they're the engine that will drive them wherever they go. And if they can get whatever, above average or slightly below average goaltending, if the goaltending isn't losing games for them, I think they'd be dangerous.
And I think the same applies to the Ottawa Senators, right, who are getting terrible goaltending for the vast majority of the season, but things seem to have straightened out. And what a performance from Brady Tkachuk last night. Fights off the opening draw, the Islanders captain, Anders Lee, and then he scores the game-winning goal with, I believe, 19 seconds left. And Brady has been under some fire in Ottawa. Again, he hasn't been fighting, which is uncommon for him. That's a guy who drops the gloves seemingly all the time back in the day.
He is coming back off a broken thumb.
Very true.
Yes.
Again, he said as much yesterday after the game and said, I've been dealing with injuries, but I felt it was time. And it was a spirited tilt, as you'd expect, against a tough guy like Anders Lee. And then he scores that goal, which really keeps Ottawa alive. Again, everybody won last night in the Eastern Conference. If Ottawa lost in regulation or even picked up a single point in overtime or a shootout, all of a sudden you're staring at a near impossibility, like a mathematical impossibility for the Senators to get in. It is possible they get in. They're going to need some help, and they're going to need to probably, I believe they have 14 games left, probably going to need to win 10 or 11.
Yeah, they've got 14. And look, their odds right now, they're like 45, 46%. So it's nearly a coin flip.
Which is surprising to me because
nearly
I believe right now they're 5 points out with a game in hand.
Yeah, they are, but the game in hand.
Yeah.
And I'm sure some of that's schedule related too.
For sure.
But you're right. Like, it's tough to win. They've been right at the bottom of the league in team save percentage all year.
Penalty kill's been garbage too.
It's hard to overcome those things, no matter how feisty your captain is, and no matter how hard you play, and no matter how much energy you bring to the rink. Like if the puck's going on the net all the time, it's on every shot that you don't expect it to. It's very difficult to overcome that. So I don't know if I'd pick them right now. Like to Jack's point about how many Canadian teams are we going to have in the playoffs right now, like Montreal looks like they'll hold on. I mean, although it's not a guarantee.
You're 1 3-4 game losing streak away from losing it all in the Eastern Conference.
You are.
You need to keep pace.
So they'll hold on. You have to believe, McDavid will drag his team there somehow. Yeah. And right now they're fairly well ensconced there with 77 points, and what the ninth place team had, Seattle's got 71. So they got a nice cushion there. But I mean, if you had to bet the over/under at 2.5, would you go over?
I would definitely go under.
Yeah.
I would go Montreal and Edmonton, and that's it.
Yeah.
Simply because of the deficit that Ottawa finds itself in, what they'll need to accomplish record-wise in order to actually get to 98, 99 points, which, again, is not a guarantee that you get in. That's how crazy the Eastern Conference is this season. And night after night, they're going to be playing one of those teams. And a lot of these teams have been very, very hot. And I kept on thinking, Pittsburgh will fall off, Detroit will fall off, Boston will fall off. They haven't. And then you have the Buffaloes and the Columbuses who have been just incredible for prolonged periods of time. It's tough, man. And you feel for a team that has 96, 97 points and misses out on the playoffs because, frankly, almost every other year you'd make it. And almost every team in the Atlantic Division would win the Pacific Division. But sometimes the luck is not with you, and it appears that's the case.
If you're the Ottawa Senators and you would have said, hey, Florida's going to be terrible and Toronto's going to be terrible, what are the odds you don't make the playoffs?
That's exactly it. We've got Mike Johnson standing by. He joins us next.
It's Mail It In Friday.
The plant called and said if you don't come in tomorrow, don't bother coming in Monday.
Woohoo! 4-day weekend.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Second hour of OverDrive here on Mail It In Friday, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Aaron Korolnik and Dave Feschuk in for Brian, Jamie, and Jeff. We're on TSN 1050 and on TSN's YouTube channel. You may notice I'm now wearing the headphones, and the reason is I almost burned down TSN in our previous segment. I use something called an IFB, people, which is an actually, I don't know what it stands for.
Like an earphone.
Yeah. It's like when you do TV, you plug it into the thing, and it's more discreet, let's call it. You don't see it necessarily in the ear. And I looked down during that last segment, and it was smoking. The plug was smoking. And I would feel very bad, going to our bosses, Mike Lane and Stephanie Apolito, and saying, yeah, sorry, I burned down the studio. My bad, guys. It's a good thing we can work remotely, right? Coronavirus. I don't think that would be well received.
I smelled something burning, and I was like,
Yeah.
Did like one of the guys bring in something from the cafeteria that was kind of like a bit stinky, or what was going on?
I can't even
here?
explain how hot this thing is right now. You could cook an egg on this thing.
Yeah, well,
Not
luckily, the side that was smoking was the side that was attached to the desk, and not the side that was attached to your face.
Yeah, that's a good point. That would be a tough way to go. I'd be like Two-Face in the Batman movies.
Yeah.
Who was the actor there?
Melted you.
Aaron Eckhart.
It melted you.
Yeah, that would have been unfortunate. But I'm all good, and we're all good here. JP, Alex, the maestros behind the scenes have taken care of me and taken care of the audience. Mike Johnson is going to call in momentarily. Looking forward to that. Ryan Dempster as well. The J season 1 week from tonight. Kevin Gosman will toe the rubber against the Athletics. Do they have a city yet? Is it Sacramento? Is it Vegas? Is it Oakland? What are we calling them this year?
They're playing in Sacramento, but They are the Athletics because they don't want to admit it because they're playing in a AAA park in Sacramento.
You been to Sacramento?
I've been.
What's Sacramento like?
It's so unremarkable that I can't tell you anything about it.
Yeah, it's like as far as Californian cities, Sacramento's pretty far down the list.
Oh, what did Phil Jackson used to call it back in the day? Cowtown, I believe.
Cowtown. All right, that's not very.
The Lakers.
That's not very complimentary.
It's nothing like L.A. It's in California, but it's got nothing to do with L.A.
Well, our next guest last night was in Detroit, a vastly superior place to Sacramento, to see the Wings beat the Montreal Canadiens. Joining us on the Maple Toyota hotline is our friend Mike Johnson. There he is. MJ, did you hear how I almost burned down the TSN studios here?
I caught the tail end of that.
Yeah.
I guess I'm glad you're okay.
Thank you.
Although in my life, I generally root for all things chaos. Like I am full chaos all the time. So like a little dust up, a little burn down that no one got hurt, just some small property damage. I probably could get behind that. That would be a pretty good story.
Well, nowhere is there more chaos than in the Eastern Conference of the National Hockey League. How about that segue right there, Mike? Not bad, not bad. But everybody wins every single night. It's looking more and more like to get in, you need 98, 99, maybe even 100 points. I mean, this is unprecedented what we're seeing in the East this year, especially considering what's going on in the West, where it might be 86, 87 to get in.
Yeah, wasn't it last year that Calgary missed with one of the highest point totals of all time? They missed with 95 or 96. And then they're going to turn around and somebody, whether it's the Islanders or the Senators or the Habs or whoever, might miss with 97 or 98. Yeah, it's tough. I think the proliferation of 3-point games this year. I mean, there was more overtime games than we'd seen in recent memory this year. So everyone's picking up extra points. And you're right. AK, you're watching the out-of-town scoreboard. And you're like, you know what? At this point, we're not even cheering for anyone. We're just cheering for regulation. Like, if you're one of the teams involved, like, just, give me it. And that's why the teams actually would have seen the result of the Ottawa Islander game, 13 seconds left, having Ottawa win that regulation. Like, okay, yes. I mean, Ottawa gets 2 points, but the point is there's not 3 for the game. Same thing in the Montreal game. It was going down the last minute. A brutal, tough turnover by Mike Matheson, and Detroit wins it late. But yeah, it's going to be, there's so many different permutations of how teams could make it, whether it's being third or second in the Metro or being in a wild card team or maybe being third in the Atlantic, that it's hard to figure how it's all going to shake out. I just know this, that the Canadians, who have been sort of comfortable and celebrated and exciting and all things going great, are now tied for 8th. They're also tied for 3rd, but they're tied for 8th in their division, which is, perilously close to being out of the playoffs, which is something they haven't even thought about for a long time.
MJ, you were correct on the fact check, by the way. The Calgary Flames last year had 96 points, which tied the mark for most points without reaching the playoffs, and there were a few other teams that had done that. But, the Edmonton Oilers this year are not going to be getting 96 points, but they still have a decent shot to get in, MJ, despite losing last night to the Florida Panthers, who, as AK and I have been pointing out, got 2 points that put them 1 point ahead of the Maple Leafs in the standings, probably much to the chagrin of their management because they're trying to do the same thing the Leafs should be doing. But what do you make of the level of frustration with the Oilers getting shut out against a team that really has no business even winning games right now?
Except, if I'm not mistaken, Florida's pick is top 10 protected.
Yes.
Not top 5 protected. So much more comfortable for picking up the odd point for Florida than compared to Toronto. But I digress. If you're Edmonton, I think the whole year's been frustrating. Fast. Like I think everything about it has felt harder, not connected, holes in games, whack-a-mole. You try to fix a goalie, you get another goalie, you try to fix a defenseman, you're changing coaches, you're doing a lot of different things trying to get this team to play the way that everyone sort of assumed that they would be able to find at some point. Even if we give them a pass, I think a lot of people did for 40 games because of the 2 consecutive finals and the fatigue and maybe the Olympics. But at some point, the assumption, they'll figure it out because they've been really good. They'll be really good again. And now with Draisaitl hurt, what are the chances of them being really good in the regular season? It's not good. I mean, they may scrap and get in. They might win the division. But I don't think they'll be playing at a tremendous Stanley Cup finalist caliber level. And they hope, I guess they find it. But the disconnect too, Fest, when you hear Knobloch, and I get coaches speak, and I get players don't really offer candid assessments of their game a lot of the time because they are trying to keep it in house or they're trying to not get too negative. But to hear Knobloch talk about how they worked really hard, it was a really good game. That kind of rings untrue. Like I think against Florida last night, they weren't up to the challenge. They weren't ready to go and be physically engaged. And you'd think if there was going to be a team in this situation to motivate Edmonton beyond the points, the team that beat you 2 years in a row, the team that sort of takes pot shots at your players, dry settle in the Olympics, whatever, like that might get stir up a little something, little sense of urgency. And it just maybe that's the word I'm looking for. The whole year, there hasn't been a sense of urgency. It's just like we're gonna be fine. We'll get it together. We'll get there eventually. They're almost at the finish, and they haven't got there yet. So I guess I'm worried about them. The only thing they have going for them, the Pacific, because they're going to be in that bracket, which looks like it's going to be pretty weak.
TSN hockey analyst Mike Johnson, our guest here in hour 2 of Overdrive. I know you're fired up for Leafs Hurricanes tonight from Scotiabank Arena. 13 games to go. Yeah.
I am going to the game, not working. That's how fired up I am for the Canes and the Leafs.
What, the alumni box has a special the alumni box has some kind of special food tonight or what?
I'm giving out the military jersey.
Oh, very nice. All right.
So there you
now
go.
I will watch. Now I will
Great
watch.
on.
I wasn't going to before, but now I will. So
Just until
Mike,
the second break.
Yeah, exactly. I went on a diatribe earlier talking about Matthew Nyes, who came out this morning, was saying, well, I'm dealing with this injury, can't get any worse, and a lot of guys play with stuff at this time of year. I'm just going to continue playing. And my question is why? Season's over. Why not get this guy some treatment, get him as healthy as possible for the offseason, and also do your best to lose hockey games because really at the end of the day, that is what puts yourself in the best position heading into the offseason. Do you see it the same way?
I see it that way from a macro perspective. Of course, you're right. Like, obviously, you're right. And I don't know what's wrong with Matthew Nyes. If he needs a procedure, AK, then get him out of the lineup yesterday, right? Like, do not wait until the summer, even though it's going to be a long summer. Do it now. Get him rested. Get him healthier, so his summer training, which will take 3+ months, will be unhindered by whatever recovery he's going to have to go through. If it's not a procedure and it's just sort of rest, it's a different kind of conversation because I also understand the athlete side where Matthew Nye is like, I want to play. Like, I'm not feeling great, but I'm a competitor. I don't want to watch. I don't want to just be icing my knee down while we struggle through this. I want to be in the grind with my teammates. And I respect that. And I would have been like that. I played lots at different times when maybe I should not have or could have used a break, but you just keep playing because that's what you want to do. But maybe this is one of those ones where if there was a really clear vision of what the rest of this year is supposed to be, and I don't know if there is. I'm not saying there isn't. I just don't know if there is. But if there was a really clear vision from Brad Treliving, like, listen, we're going for the bottom 5. We're not going to, dress players that aren't NHL players if we have NHL guys available. But if we have guys that are hurt, they won't play. If there was a clear vision and a mandate and an understanding, then maybe that word would filter down to Matthew Nyes. Like, listen, if you're hurt, not if you are, you've been hurt all year. We're going to shut you down. We're talking 3 weeks now. I guess it's 3.5 weeks. It's not like a long time. Shut them down and get the rehab and the health started. But maybe the uncertainty of exactly what they're trying to accomplish. They try to push that pick further up so that it's not a good pick for Boston, or they try to chase it all the way down so it's a good pick for them. I'm not sure. They're stuck in the middle. But if they were going down and it was an organizationally discussed plan that we need to finish as low as possible, then both for Matthew Nyes' health, his training, and next year, plus the draft pick, it would make sense. Sit him out the rest of the year.
Well, aren't you a little, if I'm a fan, MJ, I'm a little disturbed that I'm not seeing more Marlies in the lineup. Like, you want to start selling the future here. You want to talk about resetting and having another good year next year. Part of that's going to involve ideally maximizing whatever you have in the system. Now we've seen Bo Grew and we've seen Quillen, but there's a whole other roster of Marlies down there. Are they basically saying we don't have anybody else that's worth seeing, or how do you look at this? Shouldn't we be seeing more Marlies at this point?
I suppose, but there are some rules about who you can call up and when, and salary cap permutations. Like, you just can't bring up 8 guys because
Fair
you
enough.
want to. Like, there are roster limits to what you can do. Um, but yeah, like you should be able. You should try to get as many in as possible. Yes, for the reason we just talked about. There's going to be some players that aren't coming back. If you're Cali Yarncroke or something, like, totally respect his game and his career and what he's done, but he's not going to be back here. So if you can get games for somebody else who might be, well, you get those guys games. But more than that, Fez, I'd like to see some defensemen mixed in. Like, who's on defense down there? Like,
We need to
Yeah.
see Troy Stetcher again. Like, he's a free agent at the end of the year. Why not call up one of these
It's been a
kids?
great
Jacques
story.
Villeneuve. What's Jacques Villeneuve got going on
Somebody.
down there?
Listen, he's
William-
driving race
William
cars and
is his
comedy on
name, yeah.
F1 is what he's
Yeah,
doing.
It's
That's
his
the
name's
problem,
William.
yes.
But I call him
Yeah.
Jacques. Well, and
I like
again, Mike,
Jacques too.
I think this speaks, and this is just my theory, to a larger disconnect within the Maple Leafs organization. Sri Living, Berube, they're probably not sure that they're coming back. So if there is some edict that needs to come down, all right, 13 games to go, we need to ensure we lose as many as possible to keep that draft pick. Isn't that on Keith Pelly, the guy who's making the ultimate call? Because at the end of the day, I think it makes a lot more sense than not to do everything within your power to keep your first-round pick, because the expectation is, Mike, that they're going to try to be good next year. And if that's the case, this pick's worth a lot more than next year's unprotected first.
Yes, and yes, and this is
Okay, we're in
I'll
agreement. I
tell
love
ya.
it.
Like, I think, Keith Pelly's a very smart person, very smart. And so whether he decides this or whether it's a conversation with Tree Living and others around him and they decide collectively, but he's the one who says, okay, Brad, I know you probably want to have a more competitive team. You want to finish stronger. You want to represent. You want to do good by the players you signed. I'm telling you, we're not doing that. Like, maybe someone has to tell Brad Tree Living, for maybe a lot of valid reasons he doesn't want to go down this road, that they're going down it anyway. So get behind it and start moving that direction. I'm not sure what kind of conversations. Maybe it's already happened, and maybe there's other factors at play. Marlies, where are they in the standings? I don't even know how good they're doing. Maybe they want those guys down there for the playoff run. I have no idea. But yes, I mean, I think that you'd be well served to go down that road while also saying it's not easy to pull guys out of the lineup. Right, there's already been going to be pushback. Guys will get ticked off, is a nice word, if you just start pulling different people out of lineup when they think they should play some young kid just to try to lose. And these players are going to be around next year. There is a lasting impact of that you would have to consider.
MJ, probably the most exciting thing that's happened in recent memory in Leafland was yesterday's dog races at the Fan Fest down at the Scotiabank Arena. And these were the players' dogs. I don't know if you tuned in, but it was riveting stuff. We had Troy Stetcher's Bernese Mountain Dog won the whole thing. Very quick dog. Phoebe got the big blue ribbon. But we had, like, Matthew Nyes had a dog. Zoe. William Nylander had a couple of pups out there. Nick Robertson brought a dog. This generation of players, they love their dogs. I've covered sports a long time. I used to hear from pro athletes, I don't want to have a dog because I'm gone a lot. Doesn't seem to apply anymore. What was the dog culture like in your day, MJ?
So many jokes going through my head right now that I'm going to leave alone.
Family show, Mike.
There were not. No, I mean, I guess maybe the guys who were married with kids and stuff had maybe pets, but the young guys or the single guys or the guy, no. I mean, for the same, like, I didn't have a dog until I had children, right? You might get traded. You don't want to have to take care of it when you're on the road. I get dog walkers and they live in these buildings and it's all fine. It's not a big deal, expense or inconvenience. But yeah, it was not like it is now. Now half the team has dogs or more. Yeah, no, that was not a thing. And I almost think, if I think old school enough, if I go back to the days, like the idea of having a practice with the dogs out there running around and doing like the Westchester dog routine. Like, there would be some guys that I played with early in my career be like, what the hell is this? Like, what are we doing here? and that's not to suggest it wasn't great. Like, clearly it was well attended, young people, spring break. They had a good time and the dogs are adorable. And like, the more dogs, the better in a work environment. I get it. I love my dog. It's over here right now. But yeah, it was not a thing. And certainly a practice involving the dogs would never have been a thing.
You got to give Leafs some credit for that initiative. And of course, it's not exactly time the best. But again, Pelly talked about it when he was hired. He wants more of a relationship between the fans and the team. And I think this is an initiative. Again, 8,000 people. The tickets were inexpensive. You get down there, you see,
right?
Yeah, it's great. I think
Like
it's an awesome thing.
Like, hey, there's William Nylander, who we don't know anything about except he's like a great hockey player, and he, his YouTube channel. We're like, oh, okay, he's, he has dogs, and he has like young pups or foster dogs, or Nick Robertson, who knew? Like, it just gives you a smidgen of a glimpse. And I think people, when they are passionate about anything, that if they feel like they're getting a bit closer or see something they don't necessarily know, that's a good thing. So yeah, I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying it would not have been a thing that we would have ever done when we played.
Mike Johnson with us. So back to the National Hockey League last night. Brady Tkachuk scores the game-winning goal in the final minute of regulation. Massive goal for the Sens. And Mike, we talked about the Columbus Blue Jackets, you and I, earlier this week. They're 17-2-4 since hiring Rick Bowness. Which team between Columbus and Ottawa would scare you more if you're one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference?
I would probably say Ottawa, because I think Ottawa's best game is better than Columbus's. Now, Columbus is on an incredible heater. It's like all-time great heater. But, if Ullmark was on top, you look at the underlying defensive numbers for Ottawa, they're like a top 5 defensive team. They don't give you much. And you get into a series with those guys and they grind you down. If ever, like, Sanderson's got to be healthy and Brady Tkachuk's got to get fully healthy. Take nothing away from Columbus. Columbus is on a great heater right now, but I would almost fear a team whose absolute ceiling would be higher. And I do think Ottawa's might be. Now, having said that, do I want to play a team that's lost 3 times in 30 games? I don't think so. But that means you don't want to play Buffalo. That means you don't want to play Columbus. There's a couple teams in the East that will be like that. That will be red hot heading in. But I'm so happy for Rick Bowness. I am very publicly one of his biggest supporters, one of my favorite people I'd ever had a chance to play for. So I'm happy that he's been able to have that kind of impact. But again, it's a lot like Buffalo guys. Like, what did Columbus do that they changed the coach? But like, the players are the same. How come they can score all the time? Bones was my coach. I was not on a team scoring 5 goals a game because Bones was the coach. That's not how it worked when he took over. So I don't know what magic dust he had for that group, but as soon as he showed up, same group, all of a sudden a different team. Buffalo Sabres, Jarmo Kekalainen shows up, same group, different team. It's tricky to understand how fickle success can be, but ride it when you can. And any team that has a goalie named Jet Greaves, I'm cheering for.
Well, that's the concern in Ottawa to a lot of people, MJ, is the goaltending, right? And they've been near the bottom of the league, if not right at the bottom of the league, in team save percentage far too often for their liking or anyone's liking. Right now, they're sitting 5 points back. I think they've got like a 45% probability of making it, according to Money Puck, nearly a coin flip, but far from a guarantee. You say their best game's better than Columbus, but they don't bring their best game on a regular basis. Like, what's holding these guys back beyond the obvious of the bad goaltending?
Well, I mean, the goaltending. I mean, it is the obvious. It's the answer, right? It is what's holding them back.
Yeah.
I mean, it is largely just that. I mean, they've lost 2 of their last 13 games. So they're playing well because Ullmark's come back from his time away, and we're happy he's gotten himself into a better frame of mind in a place where he can go to work and do his best. But when they get good goaltending, and his goaltending is not even spectacular. Like, you look at his numbers since he's come back, his save percentage is 902. It's not 932. It's 902. And they're still winning all the time. And they probably could use one more top 6 scorer. They probably would really like to use one more guy. They didn't get one. They probably were looking at different players at the deadline. But their defensive game, Fest, keeps them in every game. And they don't have to score a lot. In a 4-3 league, they can win 3-2 all the time. And that's a scary opponent if they get there. They're 5 back with the game in hand. So you give them that. They're 3 back. And they have, they can catch either through, if Columbus or like the Islanders jump up, they can catch one of the Metro teams if they happen to springboard in there, or one of the teams in front of them. And they play them. I think they got the Islanders. They played them last night, but they play them one more time. They have the teams that they're chasing that they play against. So, yeah, I guess I'm a believer that the system play makes them scary if the individual play lives up to what it's supposed to do.
Well, Ottawa's got the Leafs tomorrow night at home, so
Gotta
Joseph Wall or Stolar stores will start tomorrow, you would expect. They definitely need that game. That's a must-win of must-wins for the Ottawa Senators. And I did see Shabbat played something like 31 minutes last night with the injuries they're dealing with on the back end. That's it's huge, man. And you got to root for Ottawa. A lot of good people in that organization, and they've been dealing with some unfortunate stuff with regards to their goaltending and injuries. So we'll see how it plays out. MJ, we'll let you go. You got to get down to Scotiabank Arena. Best of luck with the military presentation, and we appreciate you doing this for us.
I'll try not to fall when I walk up the
Don't
stairs.
do
to greet
that.
him.
No, please don't. Yeah, don't go too fast. Don't go too fast. Slow steps for Mike Johnson.
All right, boys. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too. That's Mike Johnson who joined us on the Maple Toyota hotline. It's time to Toyota and the 2025 Prius. Go up to 72 kilometers on battery alone, then seamlessly switch to hybrid mode. Check out Maple Toyota near Canada's Wonderland in the Maple Auto Mall. You asked MJ about his dog. And Carlo Koliakovo shares a great story about when he was in the NHL playing for St. Louis. He had a coach by the name of Andy Murray, who I'm sure you remember, who one day Koliakovo, for whatever reason, couldn't find someone to take care of his dog at practice. So Carlo brought the dog to practice, and he just got reamed out by the coach.
Wow.
This isn't professional. And, as you know, Carlo, he didn't like that too much. So, it's a dog. But I think dog culture has changed over the years. Like workplaces, maybe not TSN Radio or TSN, but there are a lot of workplaces that are very dog friendly. People bring their dogs to work all the time. And I think COVID also played into that too, where people were just stuck at home. They decided to get dogs in that period of time. So a lot of those COVID dogs were brought in the 2020, 2021 period of time. You got to find someone to take care of them. And, there's a lot of expensive things going on in these days in the world. So having a dog would certainly, and having someone to take care of your dog would be yet another example of that.
That adds to the expense, but that's one of the reasons why all these return to office protocols have been, there's been some pushback on.
Yes,
because they got dogs at home.
I know. That's exactly it. You can't just leave the dog. You got to take care of it. So,
and
shout out to dogs. We love dogs.
Do you? I'm not a big dog.
Oh, I had a dog growing up. Shout out to Wiley, Wheaton Terrier. Great dog.
Was it?
Great dog. Oh, the best.
Okay.
Best. Sadly, no longer with us. Came up to university with me for a semester once when my parents were in Florida. So my mom was like, "Can you take the dog?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Poor guy could barely move at that point in time, but we had some great moments together nonetheless.
Yeah, we had a mutt named Stitches.
A mutt?
Yeah,
It
was like, I don't even know what kind it was. It was a multi-breed, I guess. And it was named Stitches because it got into a lot of trouble. Like, it was always fighting raccoons and other, feral animals. And then it ran away. And I was heartbroken, and I've never had a dog since.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear that, Dave.
Yeah.
I think you could rectify that.
I could, but I won't.
Okay, there you go. That's Dave Feschuk from the Toronto Star. I'm Aaron Korolnik. Ryan Dempster is going to join us on the other side. 1 week from today, the Toronto Blue Jays kick things off against the Athletics. We'll tee up the Jays season with Ryan Dempster next.
Tomorrow on TSN 1050, your Toronto Maple Leafs renew the Battle of Ontario on the road versus the Sens. Coverage starts at 6 p.m.
Johnny Toronto!
Hear it all on TSN 1050. The Leafs live here. Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
OverDrive is brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you more ways to play your game your way. Korolnik and Feschuk in for the usual trio, who I think will return next week. Think so. I'm not filling in next
I hope
week,
so.
I don't think you are either. So I think a couple of days you are. But yeah, they'll be back next week, as will the Toronto Blue Jays, who take on the Athletics on Friday night down at the Dome. And Dave, I got to be very clear when I say this. I am stunned by how calm Blue Jays fans are heading into this season, considering the litany of injuries that they've suffered throughout the course of spring training. So let me run you through it. We know Santander done for essentially the season. Jose Barrios has a stress fracture in his elbow. Shane Bieber's elbow has been screwed up for a long time now. Trey Savage has a right shoulder impingement. He will start the season on the injured list. And then, again, not to play Mr. Negative here, but Cody Ponce hasn't pitched in the majors since 2021. Max Scherzer turns 42 this year. Dylan Cease, love the free agent acquisition. He did have a 4.55 earned run average last season, but Blue Jays fans are calm. And I get it. They've prepared for this. They signed a lot of guys, and I think they've done a really good job in building an assortment of starting pitching depth, but that depth is going to be tested much sooner than they like.
It's the old mantra, you can never have too much pitching. And I don't know, when this whole offseason sort of rounded out and you looked at their incredible surplus of starters, I think most people were saying, what are they going to do with all these guys? Yeah. And then time has taken its crazy toll here, and suddenly they've got just the right amount and maybe not enough.
Maybe not enough, yes. And again, who knows what the future holds for Barrios? By all indications, like, it's not that serious of an injury.
Yeah,
although
but
it's a fracture in his elbow. What?
And he says there's no pain. It's a stress fracture.
That's peculiar. And a Savage, like, who knows? This is something he's been dealing with for a long time.
And they played it pretty dicey.
Well, again, this is classic Rogers MLSE with regards to injuries, right? Barrios and Bieber and Yasavage. It was all, they're throwing, they're looking fine. All of a sudden, injured list.
Shoulder impingement.
Shoulder, this and that. And it kind of reminded me of, remember, when Anthony Stolars left that game. I think he'll be ready for Thursday. And then we didn't see him again for 3 months.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not the case with these pitchers, but clearly their depth will be tested. And again, Scherzer, all of a sudden, is an extremely valuable member of the Toronto Blue Jays. So is Cody Ponce, and those guys were kind of viewed as luxury items, but now they have become key cogs, along with Eric Lauer, in a rotation that, beyond those five, Dave, good luck naming who number 6 is, because there's not an answer.
Not right now. Not right now. They hope there will be, and there's a good reason to believe there will be. I mean, at least, hey, they've got Kevin Gausman, old reliable.
They do.
And he will be the opening day starter, so that's a plus. And Ponce, I agree. Like, Ponce is a bit of a wild card, right? Like, the idea that you come over from the Korean League, he was the MVP over there. He's had some great numbers over there, but exactly how that translates when you're back in the majors, to your point, hasn't been here in a while. Never a sure thing, right? It's never a sure thing. So, and Scherzer, hey, it did seem like it was almost peculiar that they got Scherzer back, right? Because it was like there's no room for Scherzer.
They
right?
knew when
when
Scherzer signed, they told him, "You Savage, Barrios, Bieber, not going to be ready to start
right.
the year." That's probably my guess.
They've known a lot longer than we've known.
That's exactly it, which is fine. Again, I would play things close to the vest as well. If they have no obligation to tell us anything, and I'd probably use that to my advantage as much as I could. And who knows what other teams around Major League Baseball knew. Maybe there's teams thinking, we can get Scherzer, but in reality, Toronto is probably the best place for him, coming back to a team that he was part of last season and now is going to be a big part of again this season. Again, you probably don't want to rely on Max Scherzer to be going out there every 5 days at soon to be age 42. Guys defeated Father Time to this point, but we know how this goes over the long run.
Ideally, you wouldn't want him to be relied upon too heavily. You're right. You'd like to save him for big moments, right? Like, you'd like to have him at full throttle, ideally, when you get to October, right? And look, because that's what
you got to get to October first. I hear a lot of people say that same thing. Oh yeah, you Savage, Barrios. People like take your time with them. Make sure they're healthy. You just got to worry about them in October. The AL East, I think, is a completely different beast this year. You look at Boston. Like, you look at some of their prospects who are coming up. They've got some stud arms. That team's going to be much better this season. The Yankees are going to be winning 90 to 98 games. In that range. They've got Garrett Cole coming back too.
That's scary.
Yeah, for sure. Baltimore's made some moves in the offseason. Tampa, who really knows, but they'll win some games because they always do. It's going to be very competitive in the American League East, something that our next guest knows very well. Longtime MLB pitcher, the pride of British Columbia, the co-host of Intentional Talk, Ryan Dempster, back on OverDrive. What's up, Ryan? How we doing?
I'm doing great, guys. How you guys doing?
We're doing all right. We're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays. Certainly a lot of optimism heading into the season, but I'm sure you've seen the rash of injuries they're dealing with when it comes to the starting pitchers. Barrios, Bieber, and now Savage. What would your level of concern be at this point in time?
Nice to have depth, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's, really important in this time of year. Because you don't have to try and rush guys, and you can take your time and make sure that they're going to be healthy and helping you throughout the season. I mean, kind of a formula that's changed a little bit. I think just with the evolution of pitching, now teams are, that have a lot of depth can afford to have guys out. We saw that with teams that made it, won the World Series. The Dodgers do that as good as anybody. Obviously, they have the finances, but they go ahead and do it and back it up. So, yeah, I'm not super concerned start of the year. but also you just want number one thing. That's it. I don't care if a guy hits the ball hard all spring training. Is he break camp healthy? Same with pitchers. So we'll see what happens.
When it comes to you, Savage, you think about this kid. He had an incredible rise last year. You don't see it very often, Ryan, where a guy goes from low A all the way to the Major League Baseball playoffs and then the World Series and becomes, an essential piece of the team all in 1 year. And now we see he's down with the shoulder impingement, and they're going to take it slow, as you say. But what would your level of concern be that it was a bit of an unnatural progression? Like they asked too much from him last year, and that is now sort of the bill is coming due for that this year. Is that something that we should worry about, or is this something that doesn't concern you?
No, I think the worry and concern is that when we train guys in the minor leagues to not withstand a season like that, from a physical standpoint and what that takes in the grind, that when asked to do it, it can present problems, where it's like, okay, well, but now we need you to go ahead and, throw 100 plus pitches, or now we need you to be out there and extending your season. Whereas in the minor leagues, we monitor everything so highly where it's like, pitch counts and pitch limits and all that kind of stuff. And can't throw on this many days. And let's give them an extra turn in the rotation, and a lot of protectiveness that I don't necessarily think A, works, and B, I don't think it definitely doesn't work when you ask a guy to all of a sudden then turn on something that he hasn't really done his whole career. So, yeah, I hope that it encourages teams. Like, I love what he did last year, but it has ramifications for this year, right, and how you build them up in spring training. So anytime you hear any word like that, it's always scary. But at the same time, I think more than ever, teams are take a very precautionary route, especially when it comes to young, talented players like Trey.
Ryan, when it comes to spring training results and what they mean for the regular season, do you think a batter's results in spring training would carry over more often, or a pitcher's results would carry over more often?
It's a good question. I think sometimes a batter's, spring training can last like into that beginning part of that season. Sometimes you see a guy here's a problem that presents itself. Guy comes into camp trying to win a job, right? Goes out there. Maybe it's just like the 26th guy on the roster, or maybe not. Maybe it's the backup infield or whatever. And he has a great spring, but then the season starts and he doesn't play. So then all of a sudden the timing gets affected a little bit and it goes away. And then all of a sudden it's like, man, he had a really great spring. Don't know what happened. Well, the only starts he got off were 2 reigning Cy Young Award winners. So he's kind of like, it's all like, it just depends. And I think for the most part, if a ball's coming out of a pitcher's hand really well and the velocity is there and there's a break on the breaking ball that you're looking for, that spin and that shape on the breaking ball, I think results in spring training don't really matter if the stuff's there. I think that those can quickly shift come regular season, and a guy can dominate when it matters rather than when it doesn't.
What's your take on what to expect from Cody Ponce? Because he comes back from a lengthy stint in Korean baseball, hasn't been in the major leagues in a few years, and obviously they're betting big on him. And he's got to come through for them. He's going to be a member of their 5-man rotation right out of the gate here. Coming back from Korea, Ryan, in your experience watching guys do it, what's sort of the downside, upside, sort of yin and yang on that? Is there a way you can look at that gives you any sort of indication of what we might expect?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's going overseas, whether it's Korea or Japan, for some guys, I think it gives them an opportunity to find themselves. We've seen it in the past. I remember I played with Colby Lewis in Texas. He was the guy that went over and then came back. Miles Michaelis. I know there's more that I'm forgetting, but it happens a lot where, maybe a guy is, labeled as something, and then every team that has him just tries to, I don't know, help him find it rather than him find himself, if it makes sense. Where you get an opportunity to just be like, okay, let me try something here and see if it works. And all of a sudden you find something that works. And if the numbers are there and the metrics are there, and now you have confidence behind that and development in yourself as a pitcher, yeah, man, why not be successful? I think there's been a ton of guys that have gone over, done that, and come back and been successful. And And, it's a different look than guys might have seen before. So I think it's, a good pickup and the potential to really be something that could help the Blue Jays in a big way.
Ryan Dempster here on OverDrive. So when it comes to the American League East as a whole, clearly Cody Ponce, guys like Scherzer will be huge for the Toronto Blue Jays, and we've seen Boston make some big additions over the offseason. Certainly Baltimore, the Yankees are going to be tough. How do you see this division playing out with the season on the horizon?
Yeah, right on, hey? That's what you want, just boxing match. Let's go. Good teams getting after it. Don't sleep on Tampa Bay. They're, you know what I mean? It's just going to be a good division like it has been. And I think, that was kind of how it was for a long time. The AL East was that's where you went to go get your ERA inflated. It's
Absolutely.
So, yeah, and so why not kind of have that back again? And these really good teams that are going to go out there and, to me, I look at the division and I go, hey, man, the Blue Jays, in my opinion, are the favorite. But you mentioned, the Red Sox. You talk about quality pitching. When you have guys at the top of rotation like Garrett Crochet, and then you got Peyton Tolle, who's this young stud, and they just got a lot there on the pitching side. Can they score enough runs? I mean, that's going to be the question. But, the Yankees are the Yankees. It's just fun watching. I love it. I do. I don't want to see some team that just runs away with the division. I love when there's competitiveness like this. I love when I see a brawl. Go ahead, clear the benches against each other. I don't know, start something at a restaurant one night with the other team, just for fun.
Are you speaking from experience?
Rivalry baseball.
Is that something?
Yeah,
that sounds like you've been involved in something like
you
that.
ever get into some fisticuffs with members of opposing teams at any point during your MLB career?
No, I didn't, and especially not off the field. I always marveled at hockey players for that. They could fight in their own practice, but then they're drinking beer at the bar later together.
You're exactly right. That's a different culture, I guess.
Hey, Ryan, one of the optimistic view of the Blue Jays is, hey, they're the reigning World Series finalists. Look what they did last year. Why can't they do it again? The other outlook on that is, hey, what are the odds they do it again? Given the fact that they had so many guys that overachieved by any measure, including the guy that in a lot of ways was the engine that drove the vehicle in George Springer at age 36. When you look at the Renaissance season Springer had last year, and then you think about, hey, he's got to do it again. He's not getting any younger. I mean, what are the odds in your mind that he can sort of keep some sort of a reasonable facsimile of that year going?
Yeah, I think health determines that. I think if he's healthy, I think we find ourselves at that age. We start to all of a sudden accept who we are. And honestly, George has overcome things in his life, off the field, right? And had to go through some tough times. And and when it deals with the stuttering issue and going through all that speech stuff. And now he puts himself on a platform that automatically is something that you're overcoming in confidence-wise, right? And baseball was always a way to do that. And then all of a sudden you just become the veteran, and then you just know you're a badass. He knows he's bad. He knows he's a bad dude. He knows the dudes are afraid if they hang a breaking ball that he's parking one in the seat. You start to realize that, and that's a fun feeling to have, because then now you're working on, I got to maintain I'm healthy and stay healthy. And if I do that, I know I'm going to go out there and put the numbers up. And more than that, I just know I'm going to have the respect that I'm going to do damage if you make a mistake, and I'm also going to hit good pitching. He's just one of those guys to me that has gotten better and better, and has the ability to sustain that for a couple of years. And also, by the way, if he doesn't, it's okay. Other guys got to step up. But it might be 25 homers and it might be 80 RBIs. But when you're throwing out at the top of the lineup, you just want him out on the field every day. He makes everybody else around him better. And I think he's just coming into his own later in his career as a guy who just now knows he's one of the bad dudes out there.
As are you, my man. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. Have yourself a great weekend.
Yeah, you too. Absolutely. Let's go. 1 week away. I cannot wait. This is so great. Less than a week. We got baseball. Let's go.
Almost there. Thank you so much for the time.
Yep.
That is Ryan Dempster, longtime MLB pitcher from Intentional Talk, who's fired up for baseball. I think there's a lot of people in the city of Toronto, Dave, that are very fired up for the Jays. Raptors had a very nice season. The Maple Leafs, however, have had a dreadful season. Need a palate cleanser with some Blue Jays action. And you look at their early season schedule. They start with the Athletics. Then they've got the Dodgers, I believe, in the second series. but there's a bunch of easy games in the month of April. I know Colorado comes down. I think they go to Colorado as well. So you could see the Jays with a very nice start this season simply because of the opposition that they've got on their schedule. And I think that's actually very well timed because of the injury concerns to a lot of the guys in the rotation.
That is absolutely a great timing. You're right. They got Athletics. They got Colorado. They got the White Sox out of the gate before they have to face
How
the
long
Dodgers.
have the White Sox just been utter garbage for? Like a long time. Since Mark Burley was pitching for them, it seems.
It's sickening how bad they are.
Crazy.
And you're right. That is nice. When you've got 3 cupcake teams in the first 9 games, that's a nice kind of consolation prize to all the bad news around the arms.
That is exactly it. If there was ever a time to have injuries to your pitchers, it's the beginning of the season, considering the schedule for the Toronto Blue Jays. I will have my FanDuel best bets on the other side. Leafs, Hurricanes, Raptors, Nuggets tonight.
Tonight on TSN 1050, your Toronto Raptors hit the road to Denver to take on the Joker and the Nuggets.
Chips it down!
Coverage starts at 8:30 p.m. Hear it all on TSN 1050. The Raptors live here.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
Things winding down here on the Mail It In Friday edition of OverDrive. Korolnik Feschuk with you. And it is time now for today's best bets, powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. I like the second line for Carolina to have a big night tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Taylor Hall loves playing in Toronto. He gets a point. Jackson Blake, his pops, Jason Blake, maybe he's in town. I don't know. Former Toronto Maple Leaf. He gets a point, and my lookalike, Logan Stankoven. Sorry, Logan. 2+ shots on goal, plus 319 on FanDuel. Today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Same game parlays are now available for every NHL game on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. 18 plus, physically located in Ontario. Yeah, my 2 NHL lookalikes, people tell me, are Logan Stankoven of the Hurricanes and Artem Zub of the Ottawa Senators. Not exactly household names. Do you get people come up to you and say, "Are you like Brad Pitt or George Clooney?"
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Of course.
I'm sure you get a lot of Clooney, Dan.
Yeah, exactly.
Any lookalikes that come up?
I do not have
in your
I'd actually
line of work.
No, I'm a singular, atrocity. But what can you say?
Come on.
But I like your idea of a Carolina offensive explosion. What was it? In November they played here. They had 47 shots on
47 shots, and that's when the Leafs were somewhat competent.
Yeah, back then.
Yeah.
So
it could get ugly tonight.
It could.
It should get ugly tonight.
Well, this Carolina team, they led with Brendan Moore coach, and their default setting is just energy, right? Like they absolutely dog the puck, and the Leafs have been the worst team in the league at getting the puck. So I don't like the recipe for the Leafs.
Easton Cowan's playing up on the top line tonight, if you want to call it. I mean, it's hard to really decipher what a top line is. Generally speaking, Matthews is playing. That's the top line. Tavares, Nylander, who's the top line? It's hard to really ascertain exactly what, but I am curious to see what type of effort we got. Again, that game against the Islanders was as lifeless as I can remember from any hockey team, and if that continues over the next 13 games, that's a great thing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, because losing is exactly what they should be doing. And I know a lot of people will be heading down to Scotiabank Arena to see their favorite team play tonight, but trust me, people, if you are cheering for the long-term viability of this hockey club, a loss is a win.
And they should be losing with more Marlies in the freaking lineup.
That would work as well. And some of those college guys. Where's Vinny Borghese tonight?
Great question.
I want to see Vinny.
Nothing wrong with putting him in there.
Yes. I want to thank Alex Mandarino, JP as well, everybody behind the scenes for helping us out today here on OverDrive. I'm Aaron Korolnik. That is Dave Feschuk. The guys will be back on Monday. I think. I got to check the schedule. I probably should do that before I proclaim that. But that's my understanding. The usual trio will return on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.